Welcome to Texas PTA's Basics Volunteers. We are glad you are here. Things we hope you take away from today's training. Chair responsibilities. Benefits of a successful volunteer program. Steps to a successful volunteer program. Contacts and resources. The basic responsibilities of the volunteer chair are to promote good relations between school and community. Attend volunteer workshops or training. Determine and implement the best methods for recruiting volunteers. Survey potential volunteers and school staff to meet the needs of the school. Help the volunteers become familiar with the school policies, people, programs, and the facility through a volunteer orientation. Train volunteers, teachers, and faculty members on the volunteer program. Provide a variety of experiences for the volunteers and challenge them with assignments of increasing responsibility. Keep volunteer files current and in order. Complete necessary volunteer service reports and submit reports to district personnel. Supervise and evaluate volunteer performance and program success. In a well-developed program, volunteers are welcome in the school and their support and assistance are sought out. The procedures for volunteer participation may vary from school to school, but one thing is for certain, all schools benefit from volunteer programs. Student benefits include more adult role models, enriched learning experiences, and additional individualized and personalized attention. Students learn to appreciate the talents and contributions of parents and community leaders. Research shows that parental involvement is the main factor in predicting student success. Benefits for volunteers include assisting students to achieve their goals and helping them further their educations. Many times, volunteers learn new skills by volunteering. They get to share their knowledge and talents with others, making them feel important and needed. Benefits to teachers range from helping with clerical duties to becoming aware of and appreciating volunteer skills and talents. Teachers can use this free time to focus attention on students in need or improve lesson planning. Teachers will also have added enthusiasm for their classrooms by having assistance with extra programs, reports, decorations that correspond with lessons, etc. A successful volunteer program benefits everyone in the school. Parents and community members who volunteer have a better understanding of the school's day-to-day operations. Successful volunteer programs promote positive public relations and a community attitude toward the educational system. There is pride and confidence in the community when there is a successful volunteer program at the neighborhood school. We find that most PTA leaders volunteer because they believe in our vision and mission. They truly want to help all children. Here are some reasons other people volunteer and PTA leaders to feel needed, to learn something new, to help someone, to gain a skill, to repay a favor, to keep busy, to feel good, to have an impact, to be a part of a team, to share a talent or skill, to make new friends, because they're asked, for fun, out of guilt, to fill a gap, for the recognition, to be a watch dogs, to explore a new career, to be a part of the community, to test themselves. Here are some common barriers to a successful volunteer program and suggestions on how to overcome these obstacles. Principals and teachers may be concerned with a volunteer's ability to maintain confidentiality. Make sure to train volunteers on school policies so that confidentiality will be maintained. Discipline is tough but necessary. Discipline guidelines and expectations need to be thoroughly covered in volunteer training. Make sure volunteers understand that everyone is welcome to volunteer, no matter how much time they have to commit to the program. Providing a range of flexible opportunities will help you engage volunteers. Ask principals and teachers what items can be done after school, at night, or on the weekends. Also, it can be helpful to break tasks down into activities or smaller bits that can be completed in an hour, i.e., creating a flyer, creating a volunteer sign-up for an event. Remember, not everyone is a people person, so make sure to think about the diversity of volunteers when determining volunteer opportunities. Potential volunteers with disabilities may feel there is no place for them because of their disability. Providing tools to ensure they will be successful or allowing them to complete tasks at home may increase their participation and help them feel valued. Not all parents with small children have childcare. Try to help with arranging childcare or giving them tasks that can be completed at home. Parents who speak other languages can help in all kinds of ways. Not only can they volunteer with students, but they can also help translate materials. Volunteering is an excellent, stimulating environment for learning English. Many parents equate parent groups with cliques. Always be friendly, welcoming, and approachable. Research suggests half of us would volunteer if asked, but we are never asked. Make sure to actively recruit volunteers in a variety of ways and let them know when help is needed and how they can help. Having a successful volunteer program is a team effort. The following players must believe in the benefits of a successful volunteer program for the students, faculty, staff, parents, and community. School administrators who understand, encourage, and fully support the volunteer program. Teachers who are committed to working with volunteers in a variety of capacities. Parents and family members understand how important volunteers are to the school and their children's education. Community members who are willing to support and volunteer at the school. Volunteer chair that identifies and uses resources wisely. Volunteer programs are an effective solution to many school concerns. With educational costs soaring and financing uncertain, there is a very real need for schools and PTA members to work together. Here are 8 steps to a successful volunteer program. We will be discussing each of these in detail. Step 1. Assessing volunteer needs. Step 2. Develop a plan of action. Step 3. Work with school staff. Step 4. Set expectations. Step 5. Recruit volunteers. Step 6. Train volunteers. Step 7. Retaining and recognizing volunteers. Step 8. Evaluating volunteer performance and program success. Step 1. Assessing volunteer needs. Why do a needs assessment? Helps prevent the volunteer program from becoming superficial. Ensures that the program really benefits the school and community. Documents the program's concerns to be addressed. Provides information about recruiting and assigning volunteers according to skill, knowledge, interests, and other factors. Begin by defining your school's needs. Meet with the principal and PTA president to get their input on the assessment. Then, identify the individuals or groups that will be involved in the assessment. Determine the methods for collecting the information. Are you going to conduct a paper survey that can be placed in student folders and returned to the school, or are you going to use electronic means to conduct your survey? Determine the content and questions of the assessment. Finally, determine the outcome of your assessment. There is a sample needs assessment in the appendix of the Volunteer Resource Guide. When developing an action plan, you'll want to consider your key stakeholders. Everyone in your school community, from the principal to the empty nesters down the street, must believe in the benefits of a successful volunteer program. After you know who your intended audience is, you begin by setting your goals. The goals should set the general purpose for your volunteer program. Goals should be SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. One example of a goals is to improve children's reading performance by involving volunteers in the classroom. Another example is to recruit senior citizens to aid teachers in the classroom. Then you set objectives. What specific steps are you going to use to reach your goals? Decide on activities to fulfill objectives. Examples are: survey teachers and faculty, develop volunteer job descriptions, hold an orientation, develop a plan to retain the volunteers, provide ongoing recognition. Consolidate your plans, make a comprehensive list of activities during the time limit set for your program, whether it's a couple of months, a semester, or an entire year. The different activities should make it possible to accomplish the program in the time allotted. Lastly, establish a timeline. This is the timing of activities in relation to each other and the assignment of activities to specific persons with specific times they are to be done. Working with the school staff is vital. Be prepared to inform staff and teachers about the mission, goals, and objectives of the volunteer program. Principals can serve as liaisons between the PTA and the staff and teachers. Make space available to volunteers. Provide a consistent process for volunteers to sign in and a place for them to work. Hold meetings with both volunteers and staff in attendance. Provide training for both teachers and staff on the appropriate roles of working with, communicating with, and supervising volunteers. Periodically evaluate the program by performing a checklist of current practices to ensure the needs of the students, teachers, parents, and school are met. It is important that assignments are carefully selected, productive, meaningful, and closely matched to the volunteers' interests, skills, and motivation for volunteering. Volunteers want to feel that they are making a real contribution, that they are needed, and that their jobs are valued and important. A job description gives a volunteer a clear definition of the job and expectations. It also clarifies the volunteer's role for the faculty and staff who train, work with, and supervise them. The PTA volunteer chair, teachers, and school staff must collaborate to develop creative yet specific job descriptions for volunteers. The description should include the following: a title that describes the volunteer's responsibilities, the position's importance to the school and the benefits the volunteer gains from experience, the qualifications needed to do the job successfully, the persons to whom the volunteer is responsible, detailed descriptions of the volunteer's tasks, how a volunteer will be trained to prepare for an assignment, the time required for the position, such as how many hours per week or for how many weeks. Recruitment is one of the most challenging steps in the process. Everyone is a potential volunteer regardless of race, creed, religion, experience, education, income, age, or disposition, and will most often volunteer in some way if asked. Recruitment is the process of engaging volunteers for service. So, who can volunteer? When recruiting volunteers, don't forget about these key people: parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, extended family members, civic groups, women's clubs, fraternal organizations, retired teachers, senior citizens, college students, high school students, alumni, and professionals, local business members, and parents who hold jobs in business throughout the community. How do you reach out and find volunteers? Arrange meetings at the school. Arrange meetings at local work sites, senior centers, retirement communities, local restaurants, with the Chamber of Commerce, etc. Use different methods, posters, pamphlets, and brochures, and have them displayed at businesses, supermarkets, banks, and churches. Use community bulletin boards. Communicate through community and school newsletters or publications, websites, and social media platforms. Make guest appearances on television, radio, or podcasts with approval, of course. Get creative, the possibilities are endless. Once you have volunteers, training and orientation are crucial. They can ease anxiety and confusion, alleviate fears, and increase the chances that volunteers will have a long-term relationship with the school. Training and orientation sessions set a welcoming tone and create support for volunteers. The session should be relevant, hands-on, and geared toward each volunteer's specific skills and responsibilities. Orientation is a way to help volunteers become familiar with your PTA and your school. Orientation sessions should familiarize volunteers with school facilities, provide a map and tour of the school building. Make sure volunteers know where the office is, where the restrooms are, and where the PTA room is if there is one. School staff and teachers introduce volunteers to the principal, teachers, office, and custodial staff. School philosophy, mission, operating policies, and procedures provide a job description and information on confidentiality, ethics for working with students and staff, student discipline, dependability, volunteer attendance expectations, and recording volunteer hours. Provide a handbook for volunteers to keep. During orientation, provide a time for questions, discussion, and form completion. Security. Under Texas Government Code 2109, school districts must develop a volunteer program. This will be discussed in further detail later in the training. Sign-in, sign-out procedures. Most school districts have district-wide procedures for visitor sign-in and sign-out, including volunteers. Make sure to explain these procedures during orientation. Encourage volunteers to attend additional training and invite them to attend Texas and Council PTA training events. An example orientation agenda is available in the Volunteers Resource Guide. The purpose of training volunteers is primarily to provide skill development to assist teachers and students. Training also includes opportunities to define the volunteer role more clearly through numerous activities. It gives the volunteer time and assistance in self-growth and development. This, in turn, provides motivation, greater self-confidence, and improved performance. Poorly prepared volunteers are more likely to be undependable, require excessive teacher supervision, and not remain in the program. On the other hand, volunteers who are well-trained are highly regarded by teachers who transmit the message to volunteers that they are valued members of the educational team. Here are some tips for training sessions. Training sessions should be held at varying times to accommodate schedules. The supervising teachers or staff should provide input or, better yet, participate in the training sessions with the PTA volunteer chair. They may be done one-on-one, in a small group, or a large group depending on the task or content of the training. Training should be focused, short-term, specific, and practical. The purpose of the training and expected outcomes should be clarified to the participants. Additional training opportunities should never be a repetition of orientation. While volunteers may become involved for many reasons, their continued commitment and motivation are not connected to a paycheck but a deeper kind of gratification. Retention is the art of keeping volunteers in your program and encouraging their annual re-enlistment. Volunteers should develop a motivational feeling of belonging from their first contact with your program. A major strength of your program is a core group of satisfied volunteers who return yearly. Here are some suggestions on how to develop and sustain a feeling of belonging and satisfaction among volunteers. Provide ongoing training for volunteers. Many volunteers want to learn new skills that they can use in other aspects of their lives. Allow flexibility. Not all volunteers can volunteer during the typical school day hours. Provide feedback about performance and recommend changes when necessary. Evaluate the volunteer's job often so it does not become stale. Volunteers want to do the best job possible and appreciate the supervision and the fact that you care. Share documentation of volunteer contributions with volunteers whenever possible. Include before and after pictures of art or school beautification projects and concrete evidence that volunteer services make a difference. Monitor teachers and staff to ensure that they effectively work with volunteers. Treat volunteers as colleagues. Assign tasks that will increase skills and knowledge. Incorporate the volunteers' ideas, suggestions, and experiences when possible. Should a volunteer begin to show a lack of interest, change their assignment, and/or add more responsibility. Evaluate the reasons for previous volunteer departures. Exit interviews can help with this. Recognition is the extension of appreciation for the volunteers. It is important to let your volunteers know that you appreciate the time they have committed to your PTA and school. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to recognizing volunteers. Remember that each volunteer will feel appreciated in different ways. Here are a few ideas to get you started thinking about how to appreciate the volunteers on your campus. Include the volunteer when planning activities. Include the volunteer in staff meetings and in-service training when appropriate. Send a letter, note, email, text of appreciation. Take the volunteer to lunch. Call or email when a volunteer is absent or ill. Invite experienced volunteers to train newer volunteers. Seek training opportunities for the volunteer, perhaps by providing a PTA scholarship to a volunteer conference or workshop. Write an article on a volunteer's contribution to your PTA newsletter, school newspaper, or community paper. Nominate your volunteer for a volunteer award. Celebrate outstanding contributions or achievements. Commend the volunteer to the supervisory staff. Help plan a recognition event, an assembly, reception, or luncheon. Invite the superintendent, school board, administrators, parents, and community leaders. Write a letter of recommendation when the volunteer requests it. Plan to recognize the Volunteer of the Year or celebrate Love Your Volunteers Week. Say thank you often. Take time to have a little chit-chat from time to time. Include principals, teachers, staff, and students and encourage them to show appreciation. Smile, be creative. As with any successful program, continual evaluation is necessary to improve performance. When program objectives are determined, evaluation design preparation begins. Well-written objectives will provide the standards you can use to measure accomplishments. Compile all the information collected at the end of the school year, along with the goals developed at the beginning of the year. You can also determine the program's overall effectiveness through surveys, questionnaires, observations, and personal interviews. The same process can be used to determine how effective individual components of the program are. Remember, all participants in the school volunteer program need the opportunity to evaluate the program. Be sure to review the information on the Texas PTA's and National PTA's websites. Both have a great deal of useful information for local PTA leaders. In addition, your council PTA and field service representative are excellent and convenient resources for you. Texas PTA staff and volunteer leaders are here to answer any of your questions regarding your position. Our toll-free number is 1-800-TALK-PTA or email us directly. The Texas PTA Volunteer webpage contains additional resources, including the Basics Volunteer Resource Guide, which dives even deeper into the topics discussed today. Feel free to also reach out to the VP Leadership for Texas PTA with additional questions or concerns. Thank you for your time and attention. I hope that this training has been beneficial and it will make your work in PTA easier and more enjoyable.